Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're stripping away the veneer.
Hmm.
We're looking at a stack of research and some very dense summary notes on a book that has, I think, arguably done more to make people uncomfortable with their own mediocrity than almost anything else published in the last decade.
Yeah.
We are looking at David Goggins and his manifesto, Can't Hurt Me.
And calling it a book almost feels wrong given the source material we have here. It's more like a jagged piece of glass he's holding up to society.
Right.
It's a blueprint for completely deconstructing the person you think you are, someone usually limited by fear or past trauma, and rebuilding yourself into someone who is effectively unbreakable.
I think most people know the highlight reel.
Oh, yeah.
The guy is the only member of the U.S. Armed Forces to complete SEAL training, U.S. Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training. He's held world records for pull-ups, runs ultramarathons until his kidneys fail.
And it's so easy to look at that resume
Mhm.
and just think, okay, well, he's a machine.
He's a genetic freak. This doesn't apply to me.
Which is the exact opposite of the point the sources are making. I mean, if you look at the early chapters in the notes, Goggins didn't start as a machine. He started as a guy who was nearly 300 pounds, spraying for cockroaches, depressed.
And coming from a background of severe abuse and poverty.
Exactly.
Right.
So the mission of this deep dive isn't to just look at the physical feats and clap. It's to unpack the mental toolkit he used to bridge that gap between broken and unbreakable.
Right, because the physical stuff is just the symptom. The cause is all psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to get into the specific tools mentioned in the text. We aren't just talking about grit in some, vague sense. The material breaks this down into actionable, almost mechanical steps. Callousing the mind, the accountability mirror, the 40% rule.
It's a system.
Yeah.
And I want to set the tone here. This is going to be intense. The sources really emphasize that this is not about feeling good.
Yeah.
It's not about self-love in the way we usually think about it. It's about self-mastery through voluntary suffering.
So let's start with that first big concept, callous the mind. The metaphor seems obvious enough. You lift weights, your hands get rough. But how do you apply that to your psychology? And honestly, why would you want to? Isn't the goal of modern life to reduce friction?
That is the goal of modern life, yes.
Yes.
We have air conditioning, we have food delivered to our door, we have apps so we can avoid awkward conversations. We've engineered a world that is perfectly curated for comfort.
And the argument here is that this comfort is what's making us incredibly fragile.
That's the core of it, fragile.
Oh, fragile how?
Think about the biology of a callus. It forms because of trauma. You expose the skin to friction, to abrasion, and the body basically says, okay, this area is under attack. I need to build armor here.
Mm-hmm.
If you never expose your mind to friction, if you never do things you hate, if you never push past your comfort zone, your mind just stays soft. It has no armor.
So when something bad actually happens, a divorce, a layoff, a health scare,
You crumble. You fold immediately. You just haven't built the tolerance for stress.
So Goggins argues that you have to actively seek out what he calls voluntary discomfort.
Yes, you have to callous your mind before the tragedy happens so that when the storm comes, you can actually stand in it.
Okay, but let's get specific. What does voluntary discomfort actually look like for a normal person? I mean, I'm assuming you, the listener, aren't going to go run 100 miles tomorrow.
Right.
Does this just mean taking cold showers? Or is it deeper?
Cold showers are sort of the cliche example, but the notes point to something more mundane and I think much harder. It's about doing the things you specifically hate to do.
Okay.
If you hate running, you run. If you hate studying, you study. If you hate waking up early, you set the alarm for 4:00 a.m.
So it's doing it because it sucks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The value isn't in the run itself. The value is in the friction of forcing your brain to do something it doesn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time you override that voice that says, let's stay in bed, you're adding a layer of callous. You are engaging in resistance training for your willpower.
I like that framing. It's not about the activity, it's about the override.
Yes.
But I can hear a listener thinking, okay, I get the concept, but I have a really hard time sticking to it. It's easy to be tough for one day. It's hard to be tough for a whole year.
Of course.
Which I think leads us to the second tool, which is visually pretty striking, the accountability mirror.
This is probably the most anti-self-help tool in the entire book.
How so?
Well, think about standard self-help affirmations. You stand in front of a mirror and say, I am beautiful, I'm successful, I am enough.
Right. It's meant to make you feel good.
It's designed to soothe the ego. The accountability mirror is designed to destroy the ego.
So what are you doing instead? Just staring at yourself?
You are telling the cold, hard truth. The source material describes Goggins standing in front of the mirror while he was overweight and failing, and literally shaving his face and telling himself, "You are fat. You are lazy. You are lying to yourself."
Oof. I mean, that sounds incredibly harsh. Is that actually productive? I feel like for a lot of people, that kind of negative self-talk just leads to a spiral of shame, not improvement.
That's a really valid pushback. But the distinction here is between shame and data. Goggins isn't saying you should hate yourself. He's saying you need to acknowledge the reality of your situation before you can change it. If you tell yourself, "I'm just big-boned," when you are actually overeating, you are using a lie to protect your feelings.
You're insulating yourself from the problem.
Right. And you can't fix a problem you refuse to acknowledge. The accountability mirror involves using sticky notes.
Sticky notes.
Yeah, you write down your goals, yes, but you also write down your deficits. I am not educated enough. I am not working hard enough. It becomes this dashboard of your own insecurities.
So it creates a gap. Here is who I am, this sticky note saying I'm lazy, and here is who I want to be. And the only way to remove that sticky note is to do the work.
Precisely. It shifts you from a passive victim state, "the world is against me," to an active owner state. "I am the problem, so I am the solution." It's brutal, but it cuts through all the excuses we make for ourselves.
It reminds me of debugging code. You can't fix the software if you just ignore the error messages.
That's a perfect analogy.
The mirror is just reading the error logs out loud.
Exactly. And once you start dressing those errors, once you start doing the work to remove those sticky notes, you run into the next major barrier.
The wall.
The physical and mental wall. You're grinding, you're callousing the mind, and then you hit that point where you feel like you literally cannot go on.
The point of complete exhaustion.
And this brings us to the concept that has kind of bled into pop culture the most, the 40% rule.
I see this quoted on Instagram all the time, but let's really unpack it because I think people misinterpret it. The basic idea is that when you feel done, you're only 40% done.
Right.
Is that just a motivational slogan or is there some actual mechanics behind it?
Oh, there is. There's evolutionary mechanics behind it. Goggins calls it the governor.
The governor.
Think about a sports car. The engine might be capable of doing 200 miles per hour, but the manufacturer installs a digital governor that cuts the fuel at 155. Why?
To keep the engine from blowing up, to reduce wear and tear. A safety feature.
Exactly. It's a safety mechanism. The source material argues that the human brain has a similar governor. Its primary job is survival and energy conservation. It is not designed for peak performance. It is designed to keep you alive and comfortable.
So when I'm running, or let's say I'm studying late at night and my brain starts fogging up and I feel like I can't read another page, that's the governor kicking in.
That is the governor sending a distress signal. It's screaming, "We are burning too much glucose. We are uncomfortable. Stop now." It floods you with pain and doubt to force you to quit.
Wow.
And the 40% rule is the realization that this signal is a bluff. It kicks in way, way before you are actually empty.
So the tank isn't empty. The gauge is just calibrated to show empty when you still have 60% left.
Correct. And this is where the deep dive aspect is important. This isn't just about physical pain. It applies to cognitive load too.
Okay.
You mentioned studying. When you feel like your brain is full, that is just the first layer of fatigue. If you push past that, if you negotiate with that governor and say, "I see you, but we aren't stopping," you tap into a reserve tank you didn't even know you had.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. There's a difference between mental fatigue and actual injury.
Sure.
If I'm running and I feel a sharp pain in my knee, that's not a bluff. That's my meniscus tearing. How do you distinguish between the governor trying to make you lazy and your body actually warning you of real damage?
That's a critical distinction, and the sources don't advocate for stupidity. Goggins himself has broken his body many times, and he admits the cost.
Right.
But for 99% of us, we aren't anywhere near that line. We aren't quitting because of a torn meniscus. We're quitting because we're out of breath or because we're bored.
We are quitting because of discomfort, not injury.
The 40% rule is for when your mind says, "I'm tired," not when your bone says, "I'm broken." It's about recognizing that the conversation in your head is a negotiation. Most people just accept the first offer their brain makes.
Yeah.
"I'm tired, let's stop."
Okay.
Okay, the 40% rule is saying, "No, I reject that offer. We are going to keep going."
So it's about expanding the container. You stretch the limits of what you thought was possible, but this sounds like a miserable way to live, doesn't it?
I mean,
Constant friction, constant negotiation, staring at sticky notes that call you a failure. Where is the payoff?
that leads us right to the final section of the outline: suffering to success and daily discipline. This is where the philosophy pivots from just enduring pain
Yeah.
to using pain as a tool for growth.
The notes mention suffering to success. That sounds almost religious.
In a way, it is. It's a complete reframe of the human experience. Most of us view suffering as a mistake. If we are suffering, we think we did something wrong.
Yeah.
We buy products to avoid it. We drug ourselves to numb it. Goggins argues that suffering is the only pathway to growth.
Because you can't grow in comfort.
You literally cannot. Muscles don't grow unless you tear them. Knowledge doesn't stick unless you struggle to understand it. Character doesn't form unless you face adversity. So instead of avoiding the suffering, you have to flip the script and dive into it. You have to look at the difficult path and say, that is where the gold is.
It reminds me of the Stoics. The obstacle is the way. But Goggins takes it a step further. It's not just accepting the obstacle.
It's hunting for it.
Right.
And that's where daily discipline comes in. This is the part that gets overlooked because it's not sexy. We love the montage moments, the big race, the transformation photo. But the source material emphasizes that the calloused mind is built in the quiet, boring moments.
The consistency.
It's the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is a feeling. It's dopamine. You listen to this, you feel pumped up, you want to run through a wall.
Yeah.
That's motivation. But what happens on Tuesday at 5 a.m. when it's raining and you didn't sleep well? Motivation is gone.
Motivation has left the building.
Exactly. If you rely on motivation, you are dead in the water. Discipline is doing the thing when you have zero motivation. It's decoupling your action from your feelings. I don't feel like doing it, but I am doing it anyway. That right there is the definition of discipline.
It seems like the ultimate goal here is to become someone who is reliable to themselves. The mirror, the 40% rule, the callousing, it's all about proving to yourself that you can trust your own word.
That is the core of it. Self-esteem isn't given, it's earned. You earn it by stacking up proof that you are who you say you are. If you say you're going to wake up early and you hit snooze, you just prove to yourself that you are a liar. If you get up, you proved you're a warrior. Goggins' system is just a method for stacking that proof, day after day, until you become undeniable.
Undeniable. I love that word. It means even your own doubt can't argue with the evidence of your work.
That's the state of can't hurt me. It's not that you don't feel pain. It's that the pain no longer dictates your actions. You are in the driver's seat, not your biology, not your governor, and not your past.
This has been a heavy one. We've covered a lot of ground. Callousing the mind by seeking friction, the accountability mirror for just brutal honesty, the 40% rule to override the safety governor, and the absolute necessity of daily discipline over fleeting motivation.
It's a toolkit for mental dominance. And I think the key takeaway for you, the listener, is that this isn't reserved for Navy SEALs. The war Goggins talks about is inside your head. It's the war against procrastination, against fear, against settling for less than you are capable of.
And we are all fighting that war, whether we admit it or not.
We are. The only question is whether you're winning or losing.
Before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a challenge based on what we just discussed. We talked a lot about the 40% rule, this idea that we quit way too early because we mistake discomfort for impossibility.
Right.
So here's the question for you to think about. If the 40% rule is true, and you are likely stopping way before your actual limit, what is the one thing you gave up on recently? Maybe it was a project at work that got too hard, or a fitness goal, or even learning a new language. You convinced yourself, I can't do this, I don't have the time, I'm not smart enough.
But actually, you just hit the governor.
Exactly. You just hit the governor. So what would happen if you went back to that thing today, looked it in the eye, and realized you still had 60% of the tank left? What could you finish if you refused to listen to the bluff?
That's the question that changes everything.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Go find some friction. We'll see you next.